Joining us on the line is former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. He is a 2024 presidential candidate. Vice President, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben. It's great to be on the Ben Shapiro Show. And thanks for your clarion voice all these years. I remember fondly our time together in my office at the White House. And, I'm a fan of all of your work and the great work of the Daily Wire.
I really appreciate that. So let's talk about the 2024 presidential race. It's turning into a very, very crowded field. So what do you think distinguishes you in the field versus some of the other candidates?
Well, Ben, I'm running for president, not so much because of who else is running. I'm running for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. The truth of the matter is that Joe Biden and the radical left have literally weakened America at home and abroad. I think the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan emboldened the enemies of freedom. We now have war raging in Eastern Europe, provocations by China in the Asia Pacific every day. But here at home, we have one crisis after another. The worst crisis at our border in history, energy prices through the roof. In the last year, inflation was at a 40-year high. But all of those crises, as I like to say, Ben, are man-made, and that man's name is Joe Biden. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us that have the experience and have the grounded conservative background to turn things around, to step forward and offer ourselves. And that's why I announced last week in Iowa that I'm running for president of the United States, because I'm convinced that the time has come for new leadership in the Republican Party, but more importantly, new leadership in America that will steer us back to a strong national defense, to a commitment to fiscal discipline and reform, to a commitment to the sanctity of life, traditional values, putting back on the ideology of the radical left. And I know we can build a team, we can build a candidacy, and more importantly, build an administration that can do just that.
So Vice President Pence, obviously top of the news this week has been the arraignment of President Trump in Miami and this classified documents case. I wanted to first get your opinion on the actual case itself, and then I want to talk to you about what this means for the Republican race, because it seems to me that Republicans are going to have a choice, which is whether to make their candidate the center of the race, whether the Republican candidate should be the focus of all attention, or whether Joe Biden should be the focus of all attention. And it seems like a pretty simple choice along those lines. First, I want to get kind of your take on the case in general, and then sort of the political ramifications of it.
Well, first off, look, yesterday was a sad day in the life of this nation. I mean, literally to see a former president of the United States in the dock and face charges in a criminal indictment, I think it is deeply discouraging to millions of Americans. It never had happened before in American history, and I think there's a lot of heavy hearts around the country in the wake of that. That being said, no one's above the law, and as Americans, we're innocent until proven guilty. And I had the opportunity to review the indictment over the weekend, and I will tell you these are serious charges. And I can't defend what is alleged, but the president deserves his day in court. I know he's pled not guilty. I think he should have every opportunity to make his case in court. But the backdrop of this, as you've reflected, Ben, following years of politicization in the Department of Justice, I think is deeply troubling to millions of Americans, and me as well. I mean, it's hard to believe that politics didn't play a role here. It's one of the reasons why last week, shortly after my announcement for president, I called on them to unseal the indictment. But I also continue to call on the Attorney General to come before the people of this country, answer questions about what, if any, role he had in this decision, unprecedented as it is. And in the wake of the 2016 campaign, where we saw Jim Comey exonerate Hillary Clinton for facts that are very similar to this with regard to classified information, as we saw 2.5 years of a Russia hoax that we now know from the Durham report should never even have been initiated, the investigation to begin with, as we see the slow walk of investigations into President Biden and his family by this DOJ. It's clear to me the American people, tens of millions of us, have lost confidence in the Department of Justice. And if I'm president of the United States, I promise you on day one, we're going to clean house at the highest levels of the Department of Justice, and we're going to people it with men and women of integrity who will restore the confidence of the American people in equal treatment under the law. But again, I can't, as I said, these are serious charges. I'll never diminish the importance of protecting the nation's secrets. As you know, we have two members of our immediate family that are in the armed forces of the United States. And that's why I've spoken about the allegations for what they are, recognize the president can make his case. But we have to lean into this issue of equal treatment under the law. And we have to hold the Biden administration, the president, and his family accountable for revelations that have even come out over the past few days.
Congress has now been spending more money than any time in American history. They raised the debt ceiling again, which means they'll spend even more money. At a certain point, when all the bills come due, there are only a few things that can happen. One is that the American government can raise taxes dramatically, stagnating the economy. The other thing they can do is they can inflate the currency. The second is significantly more likely than the first because no administration wants to take credit for actually sinking the economy, which is just one reason you should be diversified into precious metals. Times like these are a great reminder to diversify a portion of your savings into gold. You can do that with the help of Birch Gold. They're who I buy my gold from, so do thousands of other concerned savers. As Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa band together the BRICS nations to move away from American currency, the way they are doing that is by reinvesting in precious metals. Text Ben to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold today. There's no obligation, just information. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Take action today. Text Ben to 989898 to get started. Again, text Ben to 989898 and think about taking at least some of your money and diversifying into an asset that has never been worth zero, gold. Check out Birch Gold today. Let's talk about something you can do for your family. Okay, so my parents, a while ago, in their garage, they had a bunch of old film reels. They had a bunch of old VHS tapes, and those things are sitting there moldering. So what did I do? I went to my friends over at Legacy Box. I got a Legacy Box. I loaded up the Legacy Box with all that stuff. I sent it in. It's now back and digitized. My parents can make copies of it. They can distribute it. They can get it to the kids. It's amazing to uncover and unlock all of those old family memories. That's what Legacy Box does. I'm doing it for my in-laws right now as well. Legacy Box has helped my dad preserve and relive some of his most treasured memories using their all-in-one kit. We sent in his old tapes and film. Their team of experts digitized them by hand with the utmost care and attention in just a few short weeks. He got back the originals along with beautifully crafted digital copies he can easily share with family and friends. And again, it's incredible to be able to unlock all of those old memories that were hidden on versions of film that you literally could not watch. If you're like me, you want to keep your memories alive, I highly recommend Legacy Box. Makes an amazing Father's Day gift. Legacy Box is offering my listeners an incredible $9 tape offer that's over 60% off. It's an exclusive offer for my listeners. Visit legacybox.com/Shapiro. Shop $9 tape and film transfers. There's a limited quantity available, and they are selling fast. That is legacybox.com/Shapiro. You know, Vice President Pence, I mean, it does feel as though a seal has been broken here. I mean, there was precedent in American jurisprudence for the idea that you just do not prosecute the last president or the person who's currently leading in the political opposition. And when your administration took office, when the Trump-Pence administration took office, you know, Donald Trump had spent most of the 2016 race at rallies with people chanting, lock her up. And one of the things that didn't happen was locking her up. There wasn't an attempt by the DOJ under President Trump to actually lock up Hillary Clinton. Obviously, the reverse is no longer the case. And so this does raise the question as to whether this could easily become a tit-for-tat situation where now every election is not just a question of who wins the election, it's a question of who gets prosecuted.
Ben, it's one of the reasons why last week before this indictment was made public, I said I had hoped that the Department of Justice would see their way clear to resolve this issue short of an indictment. Because first and foremost, look, our politics are more divided now than any time in my lifetime. And in the days since this indictment was announced, they become even more divided and in so many ways more inflamed. But beyond that, you make a very good point, and that you look around third world countries around the world, it's very common to see one person come to power and then use their criminal justice system to prosecute the people that preceded them. That's a pretty common pattern in third world countries. And I was hoping that we wouldn't even give the possibility of the impression of that to the wider world. We're the gold standard of democracy and of justice in the world. And I had hoped for better in this moment. But look, we are where we are, and I think we got to stand for the rule of law. I mean, the president has a right to take his case into the court of law. I think we need to stand on the rule of law. But I do think that that restoring confidence in equal treatment under the law, the Department of Justice ought to be moving forward with a special counsel that's been appointed to investigate President Biden's handling of classified information. We ought to see the Justice Department moving forward expeditiously to investigate the matters that Senator Chuck Grassley brought up this week about now we have 17 recordings that seem to suggest the possibility of bribery. Look, the answer to restoring confidence in the rule of law is equal treatment of everyone across the board. And I'm going to continue to champion that. And if I have the privilege to serve as president of the United States, we'll restore confidence, not just in the Department of Justice, but in the rule of law in this country.
All right, guys, the rest of the show continues right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be joined on the line by former Vice President and current presidential candidate Mike Pence. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click the link in the description and join us.